we're here to talk about CTV. CTV is just this enormous opportunity. And yet it has, I think, some very real measurement challenges, right? As an industry, we have just relied so heavily on reach and frequency to measure ad delivery, to measure success. And, we're not talking about, was someone in the room? We're not talking about how much attention were they paying, and was it long enough or enough attention that you could actually give the ad a chance to work? We just haven't. And what I'm excited about today is that we're going to talk about moving away from those other metrics towards a world where attention plays a big role. And before we kick off a broader panel, which will feature MasterCard on it, we are also going to just talk to Tim about his experience. How do you make that work for brands? How do we move past traditional metrics and make CTV work harder? So thank you for being here, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You are right, though. I mean, measurement is where it needs to start, moving these metrics. Everyone knows Nielsen, knows what a GRP is, knows what reach is, but these are all just meaningless metrics when it comes down to did the ad actually have an impact? So excited to talk about it.
And let's do a little level set for the room. For anyone that's here for the AC and maybe doesn't live in ad tech every day, no shame in this. Just give us a minute on Viant. What is the problem that you solve? What is the role in the ecosystem that you play?
Yeah, Viant is a programmatic ad platform. We're a DSP, or demand side platform. What's unique about us, we're not a end-to-end or a SSP and a DSP. We only work for the advertiser. And so we think that's really important, that we have no conflicts of interest when it comes down to purchasing programmatic media on behalf of those brands. We don't care where the money goes. If Tubi gets it, great. If Roku gets it, great. Whatever impressions are having the most impact and most value for the advertiser, we spend the money there on their behalf. We recently did a great acquisition of TVision. It's the second largest US television panel. And what's unique about it is it provides marketers unified measurement of linear TV, streaming, YouTube, and Prime Video, even the walled gardens. It gives that unique purview across all four of them. And the metrics they provide are, was anyone in the room, presence in the room? Who were the demographics of people sitting in front of the glass when the content or the ad actually came out? How many people were in the room? Co-viewing is really, really critical when it comes to this unique device called connected television. And ultimately, it measures the eye tracking of the consumer. So we all have a huge distraction now. Attention is split between all types of devices. So there's a camera that the panelists put up on top of their TV, and it tracks, is the person engaged with the TV or are they on their mobile phone? And that's really what's so unique about it. So when we say attention, we're actually talking about eyes on screen attention measurement of that family room.
I mean, which is an incredibly exciting development and something that's just not been part of the conversation. So from your point of view, is attention, as you've defined it, going to replace reach and frequency, or is it just going to make those metrics more honest?
Yeah, I think it's additive. Obviously, what's the goal of every brand? You're trying to build brand memory. And so the historical way that we did that was reach and frequency. I want to reach a certain demographic that I know is in the target audience, and I need to build frequency with them and actually convey the message where they can recall it. And that was the long-term goal. So I view attention as additive to reach and frequency, but it's another signal that we can now directly measure with the great technology that Jan at TVision built. Now directly measure how much attention did the impressions inside of a show actually deliver. But not just, attention as a general metric, the exact cumulative seconds that you had with consumers in front of that audience.
So you referenced TVision again, and it is an exciting acquisition. I had read in the press that, one of the key unique things about this, and one of the reasons it kind of happened, is that you'd already acquired Iris TV. So can you talk a little bit about what gets enabled, what can happen that couldn't otherwise when you can combine that second-by-second attention with context and an understanding of the content?
Yeah. Iris TV was an acquisition we did prior to TVision, and what does that do? It gives us the show that you're watching. And most people don't know this, but in linear TV, if you want to buy the Masters, you call CBS, the network, and you buy the show. But when it comes to programmatic, you don't actually get anything but the date and time that your ad played in the bid stream. You know the app, Paramount Plus or Hulu, but you don't actually know what content your ad is showing up against. So Molson Coors is one of our customers. So when you show a Coors Light ad, it's a very different environment in the Kardashians versus NFL football. And so that's what Iris TV is, supplies that content level feed coming through. With T-Vision, what's so great, they're measuring shows all the time. And so they're looking at the attention of any given show or pod within the show. We know it second by second. So the marriage of all of this inside of a DSP is that we can take live real-time data from the panel, know how many people are in the room watching a specific show, and with Iris, we can buy and bid inside of that pod where the numbers are really, really high. And so we view this as more of the future, taking all this data in real time, getting it into the DSP so it can be activated. And I think one of the great things with metrics is that a report after the fact is interesting and it's nice to look at. But what marketers really tell us is, hey, don't tell me I made a mistake after the fact. Tell me before or during the buy so I can do something about it. And that's what the three of us, Viant, Iris, and T-Vision, are really about, trying to make this activation possible so it's not just a report off to the side.
So for the brands that are leaning in early to this future and activating on this data, just as you've sort of laid it out for us, what are you seeing the difference being? What are they accomplishing? Are they reducing waste? Are they getting to better outcomes? Are they broadening their media plan? Are they finding pricing efficiency?
Yeah.
Where's the impact?
It's still early, but there's lots of areas that we look at. So if a show has low attention, should you buy it or should you not buy it? The answer is, yeah, if that's the target audience, you should buy it. But if it has low attention, you want to adjust the CPMs that you're paying in real time. So Peacock might have 80% attention, and it's worth the $35 CPM and premium that comes with a big brand like Peacock. But let's say you go to another show, a fast channel, and it only has 40% attention. So to normalize these numbers between the two, it is what we call the attention-adjusted CPM. And so that's what we do in bidding, is changing the price based on how attentive is the audience in front of this screen right now. So to me, that's the biggest thing, is when you go to activate, is making sure that you're adjusting those CPMs for each environment to make sure that you're not overpaying or underpaying, you're paying a fair price.
So it's really about understanding the value of what you're buying, but are you really seeing it change what's getting bought?
Oh yeah. As soon as you see the data and you see what's of value, what's not of value, you certainly should cut certain media placements that are not of high value or high attention or low co-viewing or low presence in room. Because we all know that when you show a TV ad, sometimes people aren't in the room. It's a normal behavior. You go to the bathroom, you take a phone call, your kids distract you, whatever it may be. But it's really just understanding all these metrics, optimizing against them to produce better outcomes. Now, why should you optimize towards attention? Because a 1% increase in attention is a 1% increase in recall and awareness. And that's really what matters. So if no one's in the room when your ad shows, it had zero impact. If people are in the room, their eyes are on screen, you're able to build that brand memory structure, which is the long-term goal that we're all looking for. And I think that's why optimizing to attention, adjusting for those CPMs, and changing the media plan where you have low presence in room, because those are delivered impressions that you pay for, but you really got no value for it as a marketer.
So yeah, it's definitely getting down to the waste question, which I think is so frustrating for marketers. And I'm sure there's some surprises about what's actually working hard for you on your media plan and what's not. One of your other recent announcements was you have put out a set of publisher tools to help publishers to better represent their inventory. Can you talk more about what the inspiration for that was? What's missing that would actually help publishers to better show up and better be represented in an environment where we're looking at both attention signals and content signals?
Yeah, one of the big pieces of information that content owners were missing is, what does their inventory look like when it shows up in the DSP? And we're one of 5 DSPs that are fairly scaled DSPs out there. Like, is the identity signal coming through? We have household ID, ours is called. The iris contextual data, so you can see the content, video, and all the emotional sentiment, the contextual targeting that's available, what does that look like? And how often is it coming through? In the programmatic ecosystem, things can break. Someone changes something, someone does something, and it breaks that supply chain all the way through. So what we provided was reporting to the sell side. We're not an SSP, it's not helping them, but just so they can see the metrics that are showing up inside of Viant's DSP. What percentage of your inventory has Household ID? What percent has Iris? And soon you're gonna have the T-Vision attention measurement pouring through as well, so they can see, wow, this show is really bad from presence in room, and this other show is really, really good. And that way they can optimize themselves to try and make more money, because we constantly get asked, why aren't you buying more from us, or what is it? And we found ourselves doing copy and paste of internal reports and sending them to partners. And we just decided, why don't we make a portal that anyone can sign up and we can register them and they can look at their own data inside of our DSP.
I mean, I think that transparency is like a win for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable, actually, that is not sort of more common practice, but I think it's really smart. So you have said sort of provocatively that, you know, if an impression gets served in a room where nobody is, it's not an impression, it's an invoice. And I mean,
That's right.
I think it's true. I'm not going to argue with that. But what should count as a valuable CTV impression? What do you think the threshold is?
Well, I think, you know, looking through the buy side, co-viewing should matter more than it actually does. Right now, an impression is one ad, but in TV, there's usually 2 or more people sitting in front. So a household level impression is really, you're reaching 2 or 3 people. And that isn't really factored into the CPMs today. And now with integrating T-Vision, we're able to adjust the CPM for that co-viewing factor that's there. We all kind of just generally say, well, Nielsen said forever, the last 50 years, that 2 people are in the room. Now we can know certain shows have very high co-viewing, other shows have very low co-viewing. So we're able to actually adjust for those CPMs. I think co-viewing is by far the biggest factor. Presence in room it's just bad content if it's playing, or that provider is doing something, their distribution of the content is not great. It's not what we think. So to me, I think those 2 things are really, really critical. Obviously, when you have eyes on screen attention, and everyone thinks, you know, sports, right, is the most premium content you can put an ad in. But let's go back to the recent Knicks run to win the championship, and in the playoffs, they were up by 50 points at certain points in different games. The value of the advertising pods of when they're up 50 points, presence in rooms skyrockets, attention goes down. Why? You don't really need to watch the game. It's still on in the background, and you're on your phone doing something on the couch. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I see as well, is premium content is going to change also in what we determine premium, which is how engaged is the audience with that content. And it's not always what you think, like sports being the most premium that you could get into.
I think it's really interesting that you can get down to like a placement level, not just a show level, you know, down to the pod.
Down to the pod, down to the slot within the pod. So the first ad in a pod has higher attention than the middle of the pod. And so why are we all paying the same CPMs throughout that entire pod? So again, this is all the types of data with Viant Publisher Solutions. We're able to get into that portal over time. So the sell side can see what the buy side sees and why that we're adjusting the CPMs the way that we are.
So I have to ask this for any skeptics in the room. You've also been really vocal about sort of the challenge of some of the big platforms where, you know, they're measurement, but they're also selling you media and telling you how it performed. You know, they're grading your own homework. That trope and that complaint, which is very legitimate. You've just bought T-Vision. You have Iris TV. With assets like that, you know, how do you answer the question of why this is still a trusted intelligence layer? This is different. This is not another platform telling you how it did.
Yeah. I get asked this question a lot on why are you trustworthy but YouTube isn't or Amazon isn't? And the answer is because we don't own content and we're not trying to get a larger share of wallet. The way that an advertiser pays us is a percentage of their spend. We negotiate that, we agree to something, and then we don't make any more money. So for us, we think we're in the best spot to tell the truth to the advertiser on what's working, what's not working, what's driving returns, because we have no skin in the game or trying to capture more share of wallet. We all know that YouTube drove all of our sales because Google has told everyone that for a decade now. Amazon is running the same playbook, and a lot of it is the same employees from Google are now at Amazon. So a lot of it is the same playbook, and in the end, they're not bad. YouTube should be on the buy, but should it be 85% of your budget? Probably not, unless it's the perfect target audience, right? So I think in the end, when you're buy side only, it's that credibility and trust layer that we have, we only make a small fraction of the marketer's money, and so we don't really care where it goes. And that's why we think we're best positioned to tell the truth to the advertiser on what's working and what's not.
So it's about aligning incentives, right?
Absolutely.
You know, you're at the end of the day, you win when the advertiser wins. Otherwise, you know, they're not going to be working with you guys.
If the advertiser's business doesn't grow, they should also fire us as the DSP, because in the end, we're there to actually grow their business. For Molson Coors, we've got to convince people to drink more beer. For Whoop, another device, wearable device, we've got to sell these Whoops in the end to consumers, and that means drive awareness, drive recall of Whoop versus the Aura Ring, because Aura is very well known. Apple
Whoop
Watch.
is a cult, though. Whoop is a full-on
Whoop
cult.
is a cult. I've got one, and they are phenomenal devices because it really does tell you about your body. Like, if you drink, by the way, the Whoop tells you, don't do that anymore. It was terrible. So like in the end, we're there. We view ourselves as an extension of the growth engine of these great brands that we get to work with. And in the end, our goal is to grow their business, not get more money for YouTube or get more money for Prime Video.